Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions, of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's July 16th, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Select Board and Finance Committee will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and our parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend this meeting in person for those who wish to do so remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A Section 20F, to notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make an video recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Edge and the town of Great Barrington. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. I'm going to go out of order a little bit tonight at a request if someone has to leave early. So we will start with capital and then we'll go from conservation, planning board, etc. But we'll start with capital.
No, you can go ahead and take it away. I guess what I'm gonna do is just share my screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'll take the first stab at presenting the capital budget to you tonight. Mark is going to share on screen the capital request summary, which is in tab 7 of your budget book. Tab 7 presents the proposed capital budget by by department, police, fire, DPW, etc. And then it breaks it down a little bit further between roads, streets, bridges, buildings and grounds, etc. So that's a good thing to have in front of you. It gives you a snapshot of how we propose the various components of the capital budget be funded, whether by borrowing, grants, CPA, or tax levy, meaning raise and appropriate and pay it directly. Just in general, for items that have a lower cost, a lower value, and a shorter lifespan, we don't tend to borrow for those. We tend to just raise and appropriate and pay them directly. For larger projects with longer life, those are things that we borrow for. So the FY25 capital requests are summarized in tab 7 and also tab 8 of the budget book. Tab 8 includes a narrative, which I'm going to sort of follow first. Tab 8 also includes the 5-year capital plan, which many of you are used to seeing, and this year, of course, is updated to include FY25 through 29.
Excuse me, I'm Susan French from that page, because those of us who don't have tab, I was just wondering what page you're starting on.
Page of the PDF.
The number.
Are you on a PDF document?
I printed what was on the website, but
Probably 67.
thank you. Yes, appreciate it.
So for those of you following along on an electronic PDF, it's roughly page 67 of the PDF. That corresponds to what I'm calling tab 7. I'm going to use the narrative summary here in tab 8, however, to guide my introductory remarks. This year's capital budget proposal is $12.9 million. That includes both general fund and wastewater enterprise fund. As I said, tab 7 shows how we propose to fund the expenses, whether by borrowing or grants or other. The narrative summary at tab 8 in the 5-year plan, we want to highlight the following. In buildings and grounds this year, This is the large proposal in buildings and grounds for the second year in a row. Most of it would have to be borrowed. These are big, long-lived projects generally. You'll see it includes costs for architectural and engineering services for the courthouse, fire station, libraries, police station, senior center, and town hall elevator and campus. In each of these areas, after we summarize these, the department heads can give a little bit more information if you like. In terms of the equipment, this is the, well, this would be, I just want to give you a page number for those of you who are following. Buildings and grounds is page 2 of the 5-year plan in tab 8. Equipment is page 3 of the 5-year plan. Equipment this year includes shields and radios for the police department, replacing old roll-off dumpsters at the transfer station, and new zero-turn mowers for the grounds crews. The parks proposals, which if you're following the 5-year plan details are at page 4. The parks improvements are planned for Grove Street, the Brisky Park in Housatonic Village, Lake Mansfield, and Stanley Park. For roads, proposed road, bridges, street improvements. This year, or FY25 proposals include Gilmore Avenue, the Housatonic Village streets of Kirk Street and Park Street, as well as South Main Street here in Great Barrington, as well as support for the new Housing Trust and Habitat for Humanity subdivision if needed. The bids are out now for that. We hope the bids come back favorably, but if not, we are proposing to support it with a portion of the borrowing. The road program also includes a significant amount for engineering in order to prepare major projects for grant applications for future years, so that we can go after Mass DOT or other funds to fund the really big projects like North Plain Road, if we have to, or Route 183 Park Street. As well as engineering for projects like the Castle Hill area drainage work, the storm drainage work, which has been on the books for 10+ years. And engineering for bridge repairs. The bridges that the town will be responsible for. In terms of vehicles, included this year are a new wood chipper for DPW to replace the 34-year-old one they're working with now. A replacement highway truck and a replacement vehicle for the fire chief. That's often the first response vehicle. Also included is the 20% portion of the proposed purchase of handicap accessible transit vehicles. We would only do that, we would only borrow those funds if we got the grants from DOT for the other 80%. Also included are 2 police cruisers and allocation of free cash towards a fire engine in the future. So we would allocate free cash into a stabilization fund for a future fire engine. In terms of sewer projects, proposed sewer projects include engineering and design for upgrades of 2 pump stations, Avery Lane and Pearl Street, as well as ongoing manhole rehabilitations, pipelining, replacements throughout the system. Before we get into questions and comments, just as you all know from previous years' 5-year plans, and as you can see from the 5-year plan in front of you tonight, the capital needs over the next few years are significant, to say the least. We recognize, and we've said in the past that the capital, that debt service costs are one of the most significant drivers of the budget. We recognize that. This year, staff trimmed almost 10 million off of our first draft proposal to the town manager. So what's in front of you is 10 million less than we actually think we need. This proposal in front of you is what we believe is needed to keep the infrastructure, buildings, and equipment in good order support economic development and housing, and public safety. We do know that with this reduced proposal and combined with previous years authorized unissued debt, this will have significant cost impacts. We recognize that. On the other hand, and this was noted last night, there are costs to not doing the work and deferring the work, risks to deferring the work. With that being said, staff is here to answer your questions, and we'll go through all of the proposals. There are estimates included in your budget book for the vehicles and things like that. So.
Chris, why don't we go to, yeah, why don't we go to section 7? That little chart, and we'll just start at the top with police and just work our way down. Does that work for you?
There are, 3 requests in here in tab 7 for the police. We have shields, radios, and cruisers. I think Sergeant Carlotto may be on the line.
And Chief Story.
And Chief Story can answer questions if there are any. None of these, police ones are proposed to be funded by borrow. They're all proposed to be funded by, tax.
So, what are the shields for in that plan?
Chief Fund.
Good question. Yes, they should be.
Yeah, I'm on.
Chief, I think the question was about the shield.
Yeah, what are they?
Yeah,
for?
so the shields are another tool that that I've trying to purchase for the safety of the community and the officers. After last year's couple swatting events that we had at the school, in my after action kind of review of those situations, I learned that one, we weren't very equipped for if that was a real event. So I did some research and found this tool that we can use to help protect the officers and help protect other people in any type of different situations. So I'm proposing that we purchase these shields. They are a small portable type shield to protect the center line of the officer in any type of hostile type situation, to give them a better chance of safety and surviving that encounter if they are faced with it.
Chief, I'm just curious, do you know the name of the manufacturer of that?
It's Vector, the Vector Protective Barrier.
I mean, I'm a little bit confused here. So have we ever had a situation here in this town where we needed shields?
Well, going back, the Simon's Rock incident, it's also a de-escalation tool to help promote any type of confrontation. So yes, and hopefully we never do have a situation, but at the end of the day, when I again reviewed those incidents to make sure that if an officer did have to respond to any type of critical incident, that we have the tools and the means to make sure that they get home safely at the end of the night.
But we never had that situation before. I just want to make sure that I understand that.
There was an incident a while ago, 20 years ago. It
20
sounded
years
like
ago.
30.
But since then, we haven't had any.
I'm not sure you want to wait till we have one and then decide to
I'm
order
just
that.
asking like what kind of a community we have here, so it's just kind of a question.
Legal.
Chief, I just noticed that there's 10 of them, and you mentioned that they're portable. Is this something that, you know, I don't know, hypothetically, we could cut the number and it could be used as needed, or?
Well,
Is
that's a couple of the reasons. Great question, Lee. So if you look at the quote there, so 10 or more, it's $1,000 less a shield. So theoretically, we would have to have one for every car, because you never know who's going to have to respond to that incident and what car they're going to be in. And again, when I reviewed that situation from last year, I was the first one on the scene, and my vehicle was not equipped to handle if that was an active event. So as a result of that evaluation, I want to make sure that we are prepared in any vehicle that we have to respond in. I just happened to be the closest one there, and so I was the first one on scene. And
So
that's
you're
what,
saying,
that's what we do. We kind of look at it to make sure, like when we respond to any type of situations afterwards, that we are equipped, that we're following the rules that we have, and we have the ability to safely manage that situation.
okay, so there's 10 active vehicles? Is that where
We- there's currently 9, I believe, 8 or 9, and that would give us an extra for in case, we had one broke or what have you, or, wear and tear. So if you look at the cost for 8 versus the cost of 10, it would be more than the cost of 10, because they're 3,500 a piece for less than 10, and 2,500 for 10 a piece. So if you do the math on it, it just made sense to go to the 10 to have backups in case we had any type of issue.
Thank you.
Chief, looking at the description of the quote, it's also described as an emotionally disturbed person de-escalation tool. Do you imagine it being used for that purpose?
What it depends on the situation. Again, it's there. Some of the shields that they have a cover that go on them that are kind of a little bit colorful to try to draw the attention away from draw the person's attention away, and that's what they promote and advertise. Again, when I was looking for this, we got a sample of the product, and Sergeant Carlotto, who is a commanding officer on the special response team for Berkshire County, him and his members took the tool, and some of them were not sure if this was the right thing. So they had it for a week, and they were actually able to do it and use it and put it through exercises through their training. And by the end of that, they were all on board with purchasing them. Lennox has just purchased some. I believe that the Berkshire County Special Response Team is also going to purchase some. Sergeant Carlotto is on the line right now, and he could tell you firsthand from his experience on using them and the benefits of them.
Yeah, hi, you got me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so hey, Adam Carlotto, hi everybody. So yeah, the Vector Shield, we got a chance to use them extensively this summer for 2 days on the Berkshire SRT team. We liked them. We liked the way that they were small enough for individual officers to deploy them, which makes it easier for a patrol response in the event that a single officer does encounter perhaps someone who's, mental health crisis, emotionally, disturbed, the active shooter case, all those kind of instances. We thought this was a great tool. To the fact that the SRT is going to buy some this coming fiscal year. I know, like the chief just said, Lennox has already bought some of their own. So again, we thought it was very beneficial. We like the idea, again, that it's small enough for a single officer to deploy right from the cruiser. And that was kind of the selling point. That's why we were looking to get, the number to have each one in each car. So no matter which officer, where they were, if they were going to be the first one to encounter something, they'd have that tool with them.
Any other questions on that? Other police questions? Yeah, fire. Let's skip fire for a minute and, oh no, we can't. I'm trying to find the chief.
Are there any questions?
Are there questions about fire?
Somebody talk about the car replacement, how old it is, mileage. It always looks like it's in pretty darn good condition. They take good care of their vehicles.
That car is 2015. It's an 8-year life, and it's due to replacement in FY25.
Can we go another 2 years?
I can't answer that.
If I can just jump in, this vehicle, we do have it marked for replacement this year, but we were also planning to repurpose this vehicle for our building department for inspectional services. Right now, we have something like $27,000 in mileage expenses built into our budget. So we were hoping to, because we're covering 4 towns now again, but but it's shared, so that cost is shared among 4 towns. So we were hoping to repurpose that vehicle, so it wouldn't be traded in, we'd keep it here to reduce, the mileage costs for our floor inspectors.
Other questions for fire? Have we put,
In reserve contribution, that's where we take money for when we're going to get.
right, have we put any money aside for engine 2 yet? Is this the first contribution?
I think we did last year as well. I think this may be the second year. I'd have to go back and check this.
Okay.
We did put money in capital stabilization, but I don't know if it's specific to engine.
And how far off are we for engine 2 to be?
I think it's FY 28 or 29.
So this is generally what, the 100,000 generally? or-
Put a little bit aside, so we don't have to borrow the full amount in 28 or 29.
Anyone else on fire? DPW? Joe, questions for Joe? Or do you want him to go through the list?
Please go through the list.
Okay, under equipment, we have up at the transfer station, we have, 5 roll-offs altogether. Three of them are in terrible shape. They have holes in them, they're leaking, so when we transport them, we won't actually transfer them, we hire a contractor to transport them. There's an issue with leakage and garbage coming out. I think the original roll-offs at the transfer station. So they're a little bit overdue for replacement. And the following 2 would be.
So it says, the roll-offs, you're got 3 for 25,934.
There's 3 of them. So there's 2 types of roll-offs up there. There's a regular roll-off that you see parked in someone's yard that has an open top.
Yeah,
We have 3 of those, and there's closed containers that are compactors for paper to push into, and we've got. So that would replace the 2 closed and one.
What's the lifespan on a wood chipper? Yeah.
Depending on the usage, probably 10 to 12 years.
How long have we had one for?
2000. It's like 30-something years old.
34, it said.
34 years
they don't
old.
make them like they used to.
Yeah. And the plant, you know, it runs, it's semi-reliable. The trade-in value is next to nothing for it. So the plan would be to hang on to it for backup in the disaster type time or snow, or terrible snowstorm where we could use 2 of them. So we would, you know, put it under cover and try to conserve the old one even longer.
So you've only one wood chipper?
We only have one that's that old. So,
And you have others that are newer?
no.
Oh, that's the only one, the single one. Okay.
Why don't you continue to go through the list? So,
We have one dump
Ruby?
truck.
Ruby, if you're gonna speak, you need to go to the microphone, state your name and address.
So my understanding is that the rollovers, what do you call those? The containers are paid, we are charged by weight, not by volume. Is that correct?
Correct, it's a way to.
So in the future, if we do enough composting and recycling, and we are going to pay by weight and not by volume, would those rollovers or whatever the containers would still be of good use?
Yeah, because you're never gonna compost all of the product that we receive.
Yes,
Okay, if you can get the people to segregate their product, you might take a certain percentage of it out of paying by weight to compost.
so if you do maximum composting, you can reduce the weight by 40%. So the question is, are those containers, can you weigh them in the future so we can pay less as a town?
They're weighed at the tipping station, so whatever you put in it, they're weighed and you pay for that. So if you put less in it, the container will still fill,
Mhm.
okay, but your yearly total would be less. All right, what's that, the dump truck, it's for the buildings and grounds department, it's currently in 2006. Just to, maybe answer a question that was asked earlier about replacements. We have our smaller trucks on an 8-year cycle, and as we approach the year to replace the evaluator to see if they can fix that a little longer. This one, we've actually patched holes in the roof and sander and stuff like that. So it is in need of replacement. Moving down the list, we talked about the roll-offs. Mowers, we have 6 ride-on mowers that the Buildings and Grounds group uses. There's one additional one in wastewater. Some of them have baggers, some of them don't have baggers, so there's a difference in price. They last somewhere between 4 and 6 years, depending on the usage. They're kept inside, they're maintained by our staff. Blades and belts, as you do the oil changes, they get them, maximum life out of them.
So we have 8 now,
We have 6 now.
but with these 2, is that we have
We would
8,
probably, we would trade those 2 in.
or 2?
So you want to go down to buildings and grounds?
Yes.
Buildings and grounds, there's architectural and engineering services that is $425,000. In the detailed worksheet in the back, there's $60,000 for evaluation of the HVAC system and shelter preparedness at Housatonic for the community center, which is on the priority planning sheet of the select board. So let me just step back because it reflects through this. This past year, last year, the town approved $50,000 to do an asset management on buildings. We have 15 buildings in total. One is considered wastewater, which is in the enterprise, and also a smaller one up the transfer station. So basically, under the town budget, we have 13. Chris was able to get a $50,000 grant to do some additional ones, so we were able to complete 5 buildings last year. Within the 5 buildings, within the 5 buildings, there was $659,000 of immediate needs in those 5 buildings.
Really?
What's that? $659,000 of immediate needs in those buildings.
So there will be basic construction or?
They could be as simple as code violations, backflow preventers that aren't there or not working or not tested. When you add it all up, it's $659,000. There was a 1 5-year projection and a 6 to 10 year projection for those same buildings. The total for those 5 buildings for over 10 years, including immediate, up to 5 years and 6 to 10, is $11.5 million for those 5 buildings. To get them back up to speed and maintain them. So that's $1.2 million a year for 10 years. That's 5 of our 13 buildings. So what's built into the budget here this year, it's 50% of the immediate needs. And so as I go through this, you'll hear me say that.
15%?
50% of the immediate needs. And, when we get to the courthouse, we'll talk a little bit further on the courthouse, because that has an open twist. Mason building, going back to architectural engineering, built into that number is, Mason Library, a building management system is needed there, and that's a control system for the heat, ventilation, and air conditioning. Granville Library is the same thing, like building management system. And that's the engineering of it. Building engineering for for 50% of that $659,000, there is some engineering associated with, some built into that. The architectural and engineering number is some money for that, to do that.
So I'm not very confused. So the 425,000, part of it is for engineering services.
425,000 is all architectural and engineering.
Oh, it's all
That's
architectural
all
engineering.
architectural engineering.
For those 5 buildings or for all buildings?
For those 5 buildings, not
buildings.
everything on that list needs to be engineered, but
Right,
there are certain aspects
Okay.
that,
all right.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, just a process question. I saw that there's that report that was put together for the 5 buildings. Are you going to be walking through that report, or is that just something we should look at separately? I'm not walking through that report.
That's not the point of tonight's meeting. It's a budget meeting.
Okay, but so is that, so it's not part of the, I'm just asking, if it's part of the budget conversation. Yeah, so.
That's what Joe was just describing.
So it was used to develop these numbers.
Right.
It was
yeah.
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what I touched on a very high level that, that $659,000 immediate needs, there's 3 sections for that report with 5 buildings. And then there's the up to 5 years and 6 to 10. That sale is up to $11 million for 5 buildings. The only thing that's built into this budget, besides some stuff at the courthouse, is half of the immediate needs. Right?
So when you say half, you're talking about the next, what was it for the next 5 years or next 10 years?
The next year.
Next year?
Yeah, the next year. So in FY 26, I'll be back here asking for similar monies again.
Right.
So if you want to just skip down to, the Dewey Courthouse, well, that's a bad example. If you skip down to the Great Barrington Fire Station, building needs per draft, buildings report, which is the report, there's $150,000 here for that. And that's taking care of 50% of the immediate needs. This is something, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so
So you are saying next year you will be looking at the same or maybe higher number?
we'll be looking for the same and probably year 1 of the 10.
Right, right.
What we actually had built in all the immediate needs for this year, and one of the things we cut out was like, let's cut that down to half to try to get the budget to somewhat reasonable level.
Right.
So can I say, so what you're gonna show us is gonna add up to about 330,000. Out of 659.
Or what's that?
Of the 5 buildings that are being met, a half, 50% of the immediate needs, if the total immediate needs are 659, so this is gonna add up something like 330.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's spelled out in the individual items.
Well, it's a lot more here than the 300.
There is.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
okay, yeah.
All right, so we all set with architectural engineering, you understand what's in that? So I'll move on.
Yes.
Dewey Courthouse, and maybe Mark can jump in here too. We're the property owner of the Dewey Courthouse, we have a lease. Okay, and, Mark has been working on a 10-year lease. And, I don't think we have any numbers back yet, but as part of that lease agreement is improvements that they want to see done to keep them as tenants. And we're anticipating we get $10-11 a square foot now. And the anticipation is we should see a substantial increase in that. Is what's,
I'm sorry, what do we lease it to?
The state,
The state.
yeah. So it's a district court. We lease it to the state. They've identified a number of improvements that they would like to see us chip away at over the next 10-year period. So you'll see this come up a couple times, but the cost will be, meaning there's some here and there's also some in a special article. So
Just throwing this out as a kid, can we sell it to the state?
Well, if the state was, this controversy, this discussion's gone on a long time, what we don't want the state to do is close it. And they don't like to, they've never wanted to own a building, but what Mark's trying to explain to Joe is we get reimbursed for all of these costs through the lease.
Right.
So ultimately, this is a wash. You have to spend money to get money back, but
actually, it'll be an increase if we get the rent that we're looking for. The town should benefit from it.
Or do we have an agreement with them? They're gonna be paying for the leasehold improvement?
we're negotiating that lease right now, right? But they understand that they'll be responsible for paying these costs over the 10-year term of our lease. So, which is just, it's identical to it's not identical to the lease we signed, but there were similar improvements made 10 years ago when we
We have
signed
a
the
similar
lease.
agreement.
Yeah,
for that,
correct.
yeah.
So that $241,000 is the building's immediate needs, or half of the building's immediate needs from the assessment, and a portion of what is needed to to work on, our obligation of lease agreement. Moving down, the Great Barrington, the highway garage there is no generator there to give us any emergency power in the event of a power outage. Which means if we lose power during a snowstorm, we have a problem getting diesel fuel.
Is this
for
the DPW buildings?
it. This is
Which
the
one?
highway garage, DPW highway garage.
Is it in the DPW
Yes,
building?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
That's
working,
a.
oh, okay. I'm working off the details.
Okay, you have that.
What is this, 25,000?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Right. So the Great Barrington Fire Station, $150,000 is 50% of the immediate building needs. Libraries. That is built off of, the front steps, which we have a CPA grant for. The building management system, the clamshell canopy repair, that's falling apart for the managers. $28,000 for, the emergency or the immediate needs from the report,
From what, please? Sorry.
from the report, the asset management report. And that makes up that $425,000. The police station, $75,000. Last year, we appropriated some money to redo the HVAC system. It's in a final design process now, and will be underway later this summer. So about $75,000 short. Senior
Will
center,
this complete that project?
sorry.
Will that complete the project then?
It will.
Okay.
Yep, yep, and there'll actually be some improvements for the heating and ventilation and the locker room and the workout rooms.
Would you mind after this taking a second and go back over the fire station for me, please? Doesn't have to right now, but when the times come back.
Town hall,
Senior center, what's next?
oh, I'm sorry. Senior center, the $75,000 there is, for a commercial credit kitchen upgrade down there. So this past year, we put in a commercial dishwasher, that's for the rest of it. The commercial kitchen, which will be used on a daily basis by the staff in the senior center, but also a step in the direction of making that a cooling and heating shelter and emergency preparedness. Town hall, there's, $500,000 in there for campus improvements and $200,000 in there for elevator upgrades.
So what kind of improvements, I'm sorry, is it?
The campus improvements is, and back when Main Street was done, it was identified this intersection here is a very dangerous intersection, so it corrects that, eliminates the driveway here,
Mhm.
and it redoes, a lot of the paving and parking.
Okay, and the 200,000 is,
It's the elevator.
oh, okay, yeah.
So our elevator currently in the building, we had to do some emergency work on it this year. We replaced some boards and stuff in the right direction, but the elevator does fail on a regular basis. And then the various building improvements and emergencies, capital emergencies that are needed as time goes on and as well, Garfield, why don't we go back to the fire station?
Yes, and just understand, I appreciate the making the senior center cooling and heating and well. What were the needs again, please, on the fire station?
$150,000.
On the fire station, right?
Yeah, so that $150,000 is 50% of what was identified for the immediate needs. The building is 13 or 14 years old, and there's really been very little maintenance done. You know, there's a skylight and a flat roof that in the Berkshires is not a great idea. It's leaking, we have precast wall panels that are cracking. There's, leakage in the kitchen area, in the roof. So there's roof repairs, there's precast repairs. That need to be done at that building.
If I may, maybe I'm not sure if I'm out of line or not, but that is definitely a bugaboo of mine. I don't think we needed to spend $10 million on a fire station. We certainly didn't need a showroom. And the fact that it's, to me, for $10 million, there shouldn't be a thing wrong with it after this time, even though it's 13 years. And some of the things are skylight. I don't know who as you said, wasn't needed, so I don't know who designed, in their infinite wisdom, thought that was needed. But I'm just telling you my little problem I have with that. That's
If I can touch on a very important point you made. So the building is 13 or 14 years old with little maintenance on it. You can't let your house go for 13 or 14 years and not do any maintenance on it.
the truth. My house would cost $10 million.
Part of the discussion that we're having tonight is on these immediate repairs is because of the lack of maintenance. So if we're not gonna step up to the plate and maintain our facilities, the Band-Aid approach is more costly.
I'm just stating my disapproval, but I'm not saying it's not to be done and it shouldn't be. I'm just not happy about it.
Any other questions on the fire station?
No.
Ben, go ahead.
I feel the same way.
Ben, go ahead.
I had just a clarification. The building management system for the libraries, does that fall under the architectural and engineering services or the libraries?
The engineering board is under the architectural engineering.
Okay.
The actual construction of it is in the capital item here.
Gotcha.
So what we're trying to do on those is, we're working on a green communities grant that may fund these. And we all understand what a building management system is, when we spend a minute, talk about it.
Go ahead.
So a building management system, like up at Lansdale Library, there, we replaced the boiler, just as I came here, we replaced it. We put a steam boiler in it, it's one zone, so it's not efficient. So, and then that building gets used 7 hours a week. So if we have a building management system, which is a mini computer that we can monitor off something, it tells us if something's going wrong. But we can control that building and what it does for heating, you know, in the off hours. We can turn it down to 55 degrees and know it's gonna be there for days. We would zone the system so it turns around and only heats the part of the buildings that are needed. So hopefully when we do the analysis, there'll be a payback.
Yeah. And with these systems, you're able to monitor remotely?
That's correct. So in the scheme of things, when we turn around and go up to bid on building work, you always take the low bidder. You end up getting the low bid quality too. One of the things that I'm working with Ty and Bond on is, like with building management and control systems, is we need to turn around and standardize in this town on that, generators, things like that. The bidding laws don't allow us to do that, but there is a way around it where we can turn around and prove the fact that this meant that making a proprietary town of Great Barrington building management spec saves money and present it to the select board and they vote on it. We can spec that out in every job. So during my time and years to come, everyone follows that in 30 years, every building will have the same system in it. Because you think about our staff, we can't maintain those buildings when everyone's different. Nor can the vendors in the community. Because these people that took these in, that we have a 1-year warranty, are from the community. So there's a bigger plan of this that ties into it.
Ian first and then Mike.
I guess is and this might be another popular comment, but is the town hall campus considered an immediate need?
No, that's an improvement that is based on that. It started years ago before my time, when that was identified as a dangerous intersection.
So do we have any money at all, other than the bathrooms, outdoor bathrooms allocated for that?
Yes, 580. But this is what we need to do the project.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought.
What do you mean we allocated?
Well, one of the town meetings, I don't remember if it was the last one, we allocated, first of all, let's go backwards, there's the outdoor bathrooms, not outdoors, but the access is outdoors. That's already allocated. There's also $580,000 allocated to do the town hall campus. This is the second phase of it, so we could do the entire project.
Right.
So this is $1 million.
This is
This will complete like phase 1. If we want to go phase 2 and move into the back and redo the.
Right, so this will only, you're right, I misspoke. This will only do the front. If we actually wanted to do the back, which no one is proposing right now, then that would be another allocation.
But altogether, we are talking about over $1 million for this project. Right.
Ray, go ahead,
It may sound,
or not.
you know, I mean, I have nothing, bad to say about the senior center, but I gotta say, a commercial kitchen, seriously, it just seems I don't know, I mean, I've been down there a lot and it just doesn't seem $150,000 worth of, immediate need for a commercial.
So we're confusing things here.
Yeah.
Joe's talking about immediate needs from a study that's in here. That doesn't mean the senior center kitchen is part of that.
That was what part of the immediate need was. He said to put a commercial kitchen.
No, he never said that.
People are really confused about what's an immediate need and what's not.
So there was 5 buildings that were studied in town. Mason Library, Ramsdale Library, the Town Hall, the fire, and Great Barrington Fire Station and the courthouse. Those 5 buildings have $659,000 of immediate.
Okay.
So when we talk about each of these individual buildings, the immediate needs for those are put in these numbers. We did not study the senior center yet, so it has no immediate needs that we're aware of. We have some of our own that we took care of.
Right.
But so what this is, and is the commercial kitchen is a step in the direction. That's part of the select board's priority planning to slowly migrate the senior center and the Housatonic Community Center into a warming and cooling shelter that's needed in a time of emergency. This town does not have its own shelters. We have shared shelters, whether it's the school, Simon's Rock, Berkshire South, they're all regional. So we have nothing in downtown Barrington. We have an emergency here or need a heating and cooling shelter because we're outpowered. Everyone's got to go up to the schools or Simon's Rock. We don't have anything at Great Barrington. We don't have anything in Housatonic. So when I brought this to the attention of the select board, I said, well, that would be a good idea to migrate it over time and build this for ourselves.
And is the issue because the regional center would not have the capacity or, what is the thought behind that?
I'm not the emergency management
No,
expert
I'm
here.
just, yeah, but what was the
Great
thought
Barrington
behind
has,
it?
6,000 to 7,000 people.
Yeah,
There's not a facility around here. They'll take care of our town alone, never mind any other town.
right, but you don't expect 100%.
A portion of it
People have generators or whatever, but
But,
they're.
about
backup.
resiliency too, if one of the shelters is down where you can't get to one of them.
So what is the capacity of those regional shelters?
I don't know, but we're trying to build in resiliency. If you're in Housatonic, you don't have a car or you can't get out of Housatonic to the school, what do you do? The
Right.
community center could serve them.
No, I mean, no, I'm just.
So
asking,
that's how
I
we're-
understand the thought process and the data behind it.
Lee, go ahead.
So the comment on the kitchen, the commercial kitchen isn't technically needed for the day-to-day operation. It will benefit from being there. The day-to-day operation will benefit from having a commercial kitchen. The commercial kitchen will just help facilitate the time of emergency.
Let Lee go next, please.
So I wasn't gonna talk about the commercial kitchen, but I know that there is a dire need for commercial kitchens that people rent or lease. So that might be something that we see our money back in time, that if that is, something that we decide to do. But I definitely know that there's a dire need for commercial kitchens in this community. But I did want to get back to the $150,000 for the fire department. I'm not saying that it's not needed, because I definitely understand that is. You mentioned the possibly faulty design with the flat roofs, and I'm wondering, in 15 years, 14 years, are we gonna come back and see another fix? Or is there something we can do on a long-term basis to not have a flat roof, that we don't have this problem over and over again?
So I think that's why we have some engineering money in there to kind of look at that. It's great to have a skylight in that hallway and everything looks pretty and
Yeah.
natural light and everything like that, but we're asking for troubles in the future. So
Exactly.
the thought would be is let's eliminate it.
Good, okay, so that's what I'm hoping, that it's a long-term vision of, like, it's not working, okay,
And more, protected for the future.
okay,
No Band-Aid approach, no just cover or something.
exactly. So this is a long-term vision, this is not just,
And that's hopefully what you're seeing that I bring to the town. It's like some of the requests, like, we'll get into when we get into the operating budget, but my operating budget for buildings and buildings maintenance and repairs, I've already spent FY24 allocation, and we're 6 months into the year. We had a major elevator repair, we had an issue down the police station, and I chose to do it the right way, instead of putting a Band-Aid on it and cost us more. Unfortunately, you'll see increases there, and that's what the approach is of all these buildings and bridges and roads is let's do it the right way to protect us, and hopefully 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they're having a discussion, oh, that road lasts a long time, but, you know, let's do it that way again. Don't pave over the cracks, fix it.
Yeah, I appreciate that strategy. Thank you.
So I have a question about the other buildings from, you mentioned you have 13 buildings, that you have to take care of. And you identified immediate needs for 5 of them. So what's the story for the rest of them?
So, in the budget this year, there's a request for $50,000 to do another couple buildings. To perform, asset management evaluations on a couple of them.
Oh, so you haven't done it only for those
Right,
5?
so we did 5.
I see, okay.
Ideally, we can get 3, and if we're successful with another grant application, maybe we can get another 5.
Okay,
So over the course of 3 or 4 years, there's gonna be this book that has a spreadsheet of all the issues that need to be addressed. The spreadsheet for those 5 buildings is 44 pages long.
right.
So we can use that as a challenge, whether it's capital or operational, so for which work
Mhm.
on. That alone is a full-time job.
Right, but what we are really saying is there's gonna be most likely a similar kind of a need
Right.
for the rest of them.
So I guess I was kind of preparing you when I said we have 5 buildings in town, and over the next 10 years, $11.5 billion has been identified in today's dollars. Okay, you do 15 buildings, just by ratio, that's $3.45 million a year for the next 10 years.
Right.
Or get rid of the buildings and get rid of the headache.
Okay. So why don't you go on to street and bridge improvements?
Engineering, $700,000, it's up from previous, and, 25-30% of that is, we're looking at Route 183 in Housatonic, starting from the Brookside School to the Park Street Bridge. To do that road ourselves, just to redo it the way it was, you would be talking $8 or $10 million. So there's a program, a TIP program with Mass Highway, where we can do the engineering. We can do the engineering to Mass Highway standard, and Mass Highway will come in and construct it. So we will spend maybe $1 million over 3 years to engineer it to their standards, and they'll take the project and move it forward.
And what is the issue there? What is the issue there for the?
Well, right now, if you drive down it, the road is okay.
Right,
It's starting to deteriorate. So the cracks have been sealed, we'll reseal the cracks to get some more longevity out of it. And we'll try to keep it in good shape for the next 5 years, 7 years till Mass Highway comes.
right. But I mean, you have also a lot of other roads that
Right.
are in their
So,
maybe worse shape.
We were
than
talking
this
about
part.
engineering here, so
Yeah.
as part of that $750,000 above our normal engineering, a portion of that money is for that road. And we'll be looking for that for the next 2 or 3 years. They'll eventually save us $8 million in repair.
But are you doing engineering also assessment for other roads?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so that will be part of that number or
That's correct.
that is, okay.
So, while we're on that, the engineering for roads, I shared this before with you, the town has around 90 miles of road. Okay, roads last between 20 and 25 years. So we should be doing, about 2 miles to 4 miles of road a year. We're lucky if we do 2. So that infrastructure is slowly deteriorating. But by doing things like this, like that TIPS program, and working with Mass Highway on trying to get them to pay the 41 for us under another program, hopefully we can keep up by taking some of those big roads out of our pocket. So the engineering for that is built in there.
That 183 from Brookside all the way down, where did you say to where?
Park Street Bridge.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of mountains and the runoff, and it's a mess. It's very icy and.
Well, we fixed a lot of those icy conditions with the
No, I
highway
know.
department this summer.
Exactly.
So we just need to keep doing that.
Right.
To keep our roads in good shape.
Please go ahead.
So I believe it was a fair share, bill that, you know, $1 million and over, and part of that was for infrastructure. So are we gonna see that money coming our way at some point that we can, so could this offset some of this?
$29,000. So in addition to our $409,000 of chapter 90 money, we have $229,000 added.
Okay, but like next year, like if we were to wait, is it gonna keep?
We're assuming we'll maybe get about 300,000 a year.
Oh, really?
This doesn't. It's not nothing.
That's what we're averaging.
Doesn't.
It might do a road.
Okay, so we're not expecting to get more than average 300. Okay, so we are starting to see it then.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Streets, bridges and culverts, that's what you're referring to is the additional streets that we're gonna do. We have a program with the roads that rates the roads, and we work off of that list. Sidewalks,
And I'm sorry, and do you see that as a kind of an annual cost? For what you are saying in
yeah,
terms of,
yeah,
so in terms of maintaining the roads,
there is nothing.
that you would be able to get a similar number?
If we turn around and say, if the state was gonna do the Cottage Street Bridge for us or the Division Street Bridge, the Division Street Bridge would cost us $6 million.
Right.
So part of what we do in the roads and bridges, knock on wood, our bridges are in good shape in this town, better than most. But, one of the things that we have in the program here is on the other side of 41 Division Street over the Williams River, everyone goes over that bridge and it's narrow when it looks terrible. The bridge is actually in pretty good shape. So for about $800,000 of an investment in there, we can get another 35 years out of that bridge. So it's a pretty good investment versus $6 million, do nothing with $6 million to replace it. So that money was actually in this year's capital budget, but we chose to push it off the next year. So, and the plan would be to look at our bridges to make sure we're doing things like that. So bridges, the streets, bridges and culverts, that's our annual program. Sidewalk and paths, that's, was it the guardrails and sidewalk, work, right, Chris? There.
For the paths and sidewalk. It includes, the completion of the rail trail work in Sonic, if we are able to get a grant, that's, we want to just use grant funds for that rail trail. And then 30,000 for sidewalks and bus stops.
Does that mean if we don't get the grant, we wouldn't be spending it?
That's our intention. If we don't get the grant, we wouldn't do it.
Well, the only thing on here is 30,000 to borrow, the other 100,000 to bring up.
And that application is in off the Mass Trails. And hopefully we're here in a couple months.
Sorry, Joe, can you speak to the what is the Main Street South project that's $3.5 million in the item list?
So just briefly, that includes Main Street from St. James Place south to the roundabout. And then after the roundabout from the police station all the way south to National Grid. That's all town road. It's a curb to curb plus sidewalks on both sides, improving it. With recognizing the amount of traffic that we get there and the amount of development that we've had there. That road's been on our schedule for a while. We've chosen not to go through the TIP program because that would have included a lot more improvements that we didn't think we need there. So we've chosen to bore that to do that cost ourselves rather than a $8 to $9 million project waiting for the state to do it in many years. $3.5 million can get it done sooner to our standards and get the road back in shape. I think there's a lot of curb that can be reused. Drainage is pretty good. The sidewalks on both sides to support the developments.
Does that include crosswalks?
Yes.
How many crosswalks? How many crosswalks?
I'm offhand, it would add crosswalks.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. How many?
There's at least two. There's one, there'll be the big wide traffic light. to
Yeah.
get across on the east side. There'll be one in the vicinity of Olympia Meadows, and the other ones will be maintained. We may.
And another one by Brookside. Brookside Road.
Right. There's one, there's one that may be relocated as a mid-block crosswalk. We might move it to a street.
So there'd be one for Windrush to like, basically
There would
around.
be one in that area, yes. Yep.
Great.
So even though it's Route 7 and it's a big truck road, it's considered a town road,
The town owns that portion of the road, yes.
just that portion.
And we'll be, not to go back too much on the crosswalks, but is it the push button, the one that we have like on Main Street? Because it is pretty
Something
busy,
similar.
dangerous to.
Yeah,
cross.
maybe not that elaborate, but there's other options we can do.
Yeah, I just worry because we have seniors and it's, you know, we have new housing and, yeah, that crosswalk,
Now,
yeah.
the one we put at Big Y will be integrated into the traffic signal, so you push the button and they stop traffic.
Mhm.
The one at that Olympia Meadows, we have to get that.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Park improvements, that's still you.
So, so park improvements, there's money in the budget this year for, to put electric into the Housatonic Park and cameras for crime prevention. Got some issues up there. Grove Street Park, there's $95,000 in there for the multi-purpose court rebuilding, and that is being funded by a CPA. Lake Mansfield, we have some money in the project that's happening up there for electrical, but we have also added money to this number for cameras and monitoring up there. So the final item that's in there is $10,000 for improvements down at Stanley Park, which is on the side of Cottage Street. The family of William Stanley had donated $10,000 to the town for improvements. And so we priced out the improvements that we're looking to do, which is almost $20,000, between gardens and benches and things of that nature. So the budget doesn't include the various parks and playgrounds improvements, so we're carrying a $50,000 money number there to include parks that take it out.
So the easiest one for you is wastewater because it's all retained earnings, but you can take that one.
Did we do transit?
What's that? Transit's not Joe's.
Oh.
He does a lot in this town, but he's not doing transit, so I'll go back. I figured I'd go back to Mark and Chris on that one.
So, wastewater, we have, coming up in future years, 2 pump stations that are remaining to be rebuilt on Pearl Street and Avery Lane. And we're evaluating the plant. It's been quite a few years since there's been any upgrades down there, major upgrades. We're evaluating the plant. So we have money in engineering to look at all of those items. We turn around annually, we do infiltration and mitigation of groundwaters into the system because it costs us money to treat. So we study that and then we do engineering work to evaluate the system. And then we carry the money the following year for the actual improvement. So there's 2 lines in there, one for engineering and one for improvement. I am carrying $1.5 million in that number for the Pearl Street pump station. It's a smaller pump station. We feel we can engineer it and install it.
Why do you have to borrow for that 1.5 million as opposed to the retained earnings for all the others?
That'd be a good Chris question.
We felt it was pump station is a really long life, high value project, and it was just prudent to use the sewer enterprise fund earnings to support that borrowing. You could use the cash in hand, the retained earnings. That's a choice. We think not using it is probably a little bit better for the wastewater budget to keep those retained earnings available if needed for appropriation for something else.
Which is the total number we can earn.
Kelly, do you happen to have the retained earnings total? We can get that for you.
Okay.
6 million.
6 million.
About 6
So
and a half.
very high, yeah,
So it's pretty healthy.
yeah, very
Yeah.
high.
Keep in mind that we have an upgrade coming our way. It should be spending millions of dollars for the upgrades.
Yeah, we do expect EPA to issue permits that we'd be required to meet in future years, like they limit the amount of nitrogen and other things that can be put back into the river.
When they change up on that, the treatment process changes.
The treatment process, the electrical needs go up, the equipment needs change,
No, I
and it
understand
can
that.
be
I mean,
very
that's-
expensive.
That's true for anything. we do,
Yeah.
Right?
So it's a choice, you know,
Yeah.
pay now or keep some. It's a choice.
Maybe we could say part of it, everything, right?
Yeah,
Okay, Joe, thank you very much. You're not
So-
done for the night, but
just briefly, so 6.4 is the retained earnings now. Using as proposed, we have 5.3 left.
I'm sorry, can I just follow up with one quick question before we go? It's been sort of sticking in my head, and I just want to make sure I understand it. When we talked about the, South Main Street, work, we could either do a study now and the state would do it in 7 or 8 years, or we could do it in the next couple of years at totally our own expense. I guess I'm still struggling, why not let the state take over some of this?
Several years ago, before even Joe's time here, I'm gonna say 5 or 6 years ago, we made a strategic decision to pay for the design and design it not to DOT tip standard. Knowing that if we wanted to go for a fully tip compliant project, we would be in the queue for a long time. The tip is published every year and it's a 5-year outlook published countywide for all roads and transportation projects in the county. It's a really hefty list with a lot of unfunded needs and a lot of projects ahead of us, roads, bridges, intersections. At the time, it didn't look favorable to get into that list within the timeline that we thought South Main would have to be rebuilt and improved in order to support, Guido's doubled in size. We've had, 80+ units of housing built down there between Windrush and Bostwick Gardens. So the idea was to not wait for the tip, design it on our own, which we have. We're getting close to what percent design?
530.
25-30% design, which is good. We're advancing the project so that we can accomplish the project sooner. We just don't think, at the time we made that strategic decision, because we didn't think we would be able to wait that long for it to get onto the tip project.
Right. Is it a big difference if you do it according to the, their standards versus whatever we are doing?
The engineering cost difference is huge. If you were to do that road to Mass Highway standards, you'd probably talk at engineering costs, which we would be on the hook for, $1.5 million.
Main Street was a tip project, for example, and we probably spent $1 million in design. And the construction cost was probably 6 to 6.5 million all total, which we did not bear.
Right.
But we bore the design costs, but that project was in the tip process for, I would say, 8 to 10 years before we did construction. So it's a long time. We think that 183, on the other hand, based on what we can see in the overall countywide tip, we think we could get on that tip before, with regular maintenance and crack sealing, before 183 unravels and falls apart.
So
That's-
what we do is we look at the road too, and I would imagine that was part of the decision-making process back then. They look at the condition of the road, what are you making for years? So what we did with 183, Mark, Chris and I talked about it, is like, we have Route 41 that could qualify for tips, or maybe a municipal paving program on that highway. But there's certain upgrades that gotta be done. Route 41 can't last another year. That's in terrible shape. So we need to fix that somehow. So we couldn't wait for the tips, but 183, we can.
Route 41.
Route
North Main
41. From, the underpass, Main Street here, to the West Stockbridge town line. That road's in terrible shape, it's hard to maintain, you can't plow it with a, you know, plow it well with it.
Oh, I'm sorry, is that on our list for next year too?
No,
year. FY 26.
26, I see.
but you're talking $4.5 million for that road, but our plan is, and we've been petitioning Mass Highway, because there's another program you can get under, municipal paving program for a number of routes, which what Route 41 is. Just like they did before my time over at the airport. And it's gonna happen out in 23 out by the old system school, I think.
It's
So,
a good alternative. We hope that North Plain Road qualifies for that.
right, in the next year or so. So take that, again, no engineering cost, the state just comes in and does it for it. Put 183 on the TIPS program for years down the road, so we don't have that $6 or $8 million for. But I think the South Main Street, if you were an engineer, that you'd spend $1.5 million and wait 8 years. Here, we're gonna do it ourselves, we're a fraction of the cost of engineering, and it's $3 million.
You mean your estimate of the cost doing it is 3 million?
We're not gonna have the big sidewalks and all the traffic, the DOT.
Well, our design includes sidewalks on both sides wherever we can get them.
But it wouldn't be, just as, I don't have the right word.
You wouldn't have,
Embellished, elaborate.
No granite coated.
When we started Main Street, the construction cost was like just under 3, and then it went to 4, and then it went to 5.5. I mean, it's interesting what the standards drive.
And we're not putting in those big, huge lights, are we? That are on Main Street, those big, massive columns. Figured I'd ask him for, just goes up.
Let's move to transit vehicles.
The 2 transit vehicles you see under the transportation program there, those are to support a grant that we've already applied for handicap accessible transit vehicles. We currently have 2 handicap accessible transit vehicles that are provided through a vehicle sharing agreement with Berkshire Regional Transit. When one of those breaks down, or at one time, both of them broke down simultaneously and VRTA had no loaners for us. We did not have a handicap accessible vehicle. Under our transportation funding, we are required to provide handicap accessible rides. If we cannot provide that, we must shut all transportation programs down. Federal funding dictates that it must be provided. If we don't have a vehicle, we can't provide it. So we ran into that situation over the summer. It was not a good situation to call our partner towns and say we can't provide rides. So we've applied for 2 vehicles through DOT, can pay 80% of the cost. We are hopeful that we actually get 1 vehicle at 100% cost. So that may happen. So one of these may actually come out by the time we meet with you later this month. But we have to budget this. We think they're really worthwhile. Without them, the system could be shut down if we can't provide accessible rides. One of them we propose to be an electric vehicle with a wall charger at the senior center.
Okay. That's capital.
So these are used for not just for Barrington though, right?
Correct. We have partner towns in the program.
So is there a way to share this with Durban or
We do share the operating costs with those.
so with this purchase would, if they didn't cover the 100% cost?
Some towns provide vehicles that aren't handicap accessible, but through the operating agreements we have, they pay a certain amount of costs.
Section 6. Page 9. Not sure if there's gonna be any questions or. Conservation agent did not make it tonight, so. Are there any questions on conservation? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Page 10, planning board. Good one.
Planning board is also a level service, a very minor increase proposed in the board first line. And that's pretty minor.
Page 11, ZBA, that should be,
Level funded. The ZBA activity really depends on, are there a lot of special permits in front of them? Are there appeals in front of them? It varies from year to year. So it's just level funded.
page 12, planning community development.
You'll see a proposed increase here for $12,350. Or, I'm sorry, you know, I transposed those numbers, 13,200. Almost half that increase is because we've moved the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission assessment line. That's a required assessment for all municipalities based on population. It used to be raised on the tax recap, so if you look at the FY20, if you look in like tab 2 of the budget book under the assessments, you'll see it there for FY24. We pulled it out in FY25 and put it here. So almost half of the increase this year is because that line is added here instead. That's line-
Contracted services?
That's line 54,800 BRPC annual assessment. That's new here. Taking it from another part of the overall budget, putting it here instead. The contracted services line is proposed to increase by 1,000 in order to cover a required matching amount for a grant we have for the Lake Mansfield project. The specific purpose of that is outreach and education. The grant is paying over $40,000 worth. It's an 80-20 grant, and we're required to match that. So we propose to do it here in the contracted services line. That's offset a little bit by a reduction in the line below it, economic development, which is 30,000 last year, proposed to be 25.
And what is it for?
Pardon me?
What is it for, economic development?
Economic development, we use it primarily to pay consultants like Berkshire Regional Planning for example, this year we're doing broadband, fiber optic and digital equity work. We're supporting cultural district, downtown cultural district work, and things like that.
Chris, did you say there was something for education in the BRPC?
No, it's the contracted services line is going up partially to match a grant that we have at Lake Mansfield. Part of that grant requires outreach and education, and we're required to match a certain component of that.
What's the outreach and education?
It includes, this is what we're doing at Lake Mansfield and why, including climate resiliency, stormwater runoff, and watershed protection. So we'll be hopefully working with the schools and community groups to outreach and deliver that message. The grant is paying about $40,000 or a little bit more than $40,000, but we need to contribute to that cost.
Anything, other questions on planning community development? Page 13, buildings and grounds.
That's me again. The top portion of the spreadsheet is mostly salaries, which were committed to by the union contract. You'll see that there's a line item with landscaper and a line item with laborers. We group the landscaper in with the laborers, so it looks like there's an increase, but there's a pretty close offsetting decrease or negative below that. Over time, just a small increase to parallel the labor cost increase. Longevity is up there quite a bit, and Ally, I think maybe you can help me with that, because we actually moved people around. So we have some longer term people that were moved into the buildings and grounds group and highway group, so it bumped that up. Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
Moving down into the other items here, there's a new item for cemetery contractual services. We currently, with the Cemetery Commission, have a consultant working on our rules and regulations to bring us in compliance with Mass General Law. And, also there will be a report that comes out with recommendations for cemetery fees that will present to the select board for review approval. We are on the cheap side of cemetery services. So this $5,000 is to complement that with some additional consulting services that's needed. Electricity, gas and oil heating, modest 3% increases are included there. Sewer and water, the water is actually a 10% increase, the sewer and water. That's anticipation of the rate increase that Housatonic Water is proposing. Buildings and grounds repair, this is worthy of some discussion. The last year's budget at town meeting was voted for $65,000. At year end, 6 months into the budget, we had spent $69,000. We overspent our budget already. And again, this is that Band-Aid approach that I'm not doing. For example, when the town hall elevator kept failing and trapping people in it, it was taken out of service and have an issue with handicap accessibility in town. Or try to, just keep hitting the reset button and hope it works. Or work on a control board so it will work reliably for the future. And by changing one of the control boards, it's not like wasted money. It's actually a step in the right direction for the upgrade. So we put a board in there that could be used in the future. $28,000, $29,000, $30,000. Tying into that was the fire alarm panel that was failing. That, reported to the elevator. The elevator's inspector's here, and when you hit the button on the elevator and the fire alarm goes off, the elevator is supposed to go to a floor that there's no fire at. Our elevator will go wherever it wants. So, those were expenses that weren't anticipated. And so the increase there, that's just an example, that's the increase there is basically I took what we spent for 6 months and extended it out for a year. I can't predict what, and that's what I recommended, and then Mark, through his review process, has kind of back a little bit. Again, I can't predict what's gonna happen, that's, Mark and I had a conversation about this when these expenses came about. And the reserve fund was already being tapped into, and it was only halfway through the year, and we didn't want to tap into it anymore, so I'm cutting back in other areas and other parts of the DPW to hopefully cover the shortfall. Then down.
Can I ask about the elevator?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask you about the elevator?
Absolutely.
Going to the 4th floor where there's supposed to be no fire. If there's a fire, then you're telling me the elevator goes up to the 4th floor.
No, it's supposed to go to the floor where like the handicap exit is. That's where it's supposed to go.
Okay.
So if there's a fire on this floor here and you're in the elevator is supposed to automatically deter itself and go to the handicap exit. We had to go into the basement. We had people getting stuck in it. We had to go into the floor where the fire was, and if you imagine fire's been on it, goes to the floor that's on fire, he's gonna be severely hurt. So there's been changes in elevator code, and that's part of the reason for the upgrade. Because firemen have got killed and severely hurt on the way elevator. We have 3 elevators in town, they're all working right now. We have 1-year certificates right now, which has been probably the first since I've been here. Mason Library was out for months on that. So we're heading in the right direction. It just takes the money to get us there. But with regards to this budget, the reason it's brought over is because of these unexpected things. Bill, part of that number was down at the police station. We have a 24/7 dispatch center that the temperature was getting up to 80 to 90 degrees because of the lack of heating and cooling. And so what we did is we're working with a consultant. We put a mini split in there with a microchip in it that will tie into the future HVAC system. It's not a Band-Aid approach. Previously, the Band-Aid approaches were they get a couple window air conditioners and tuck them in there, which cost us money. Buy the air conditioner, maintain the air conditioner, put it in, take it out, jeopardize the security of the police station. So again, I feel I need to share these stories with people so they understand to the level things are being thought out to be done right, and hopefully we'll reap the benefits as time goes on.
Yeah, I guess the moral of this story with the building and repairs and a lot of the capital gains is just short-term thinking is what I would call it, right? It's like landlord, bad policy as far as kicking the main can down the street, Band-Aids and deferred maintenance, and sooner or later that comes back to bite you. Like, it's been known, like landlords do it, they take all the value out of the house, then they end up selling it after 20 years of neglect, and then someone else comes back in, and that appears to me what's been going on for a long time, and now that we have, I understand the double edge here, but it's why we have motivation and the team to get it done. It's hard to deny the obvious, and I appreciate the long-term focus that you have, and it is painful at first, but it's talking about setting up the town for the future, but I understand the temptation of kicking the can and trying to do the Band-Aid approach, but sooner or later it rears its head and.
Well, like, for example, the elevator in town hall here. You need an elevator license to walk in the elevator and move upstairs. Okay, so every time we call Otisano Elevator, who's our elevator license, you're talking $3,000. You're gonna be overtime with people trapped, things like that.
Yeah.
And when we walk in there to hit the reset button to get it going again, we're subject to a $5,000 fine.
Yeah.
Luckily, we don't get it, but if the elevator inspector showed up and said, hey, how'd you get this going? How'd it happen? We would be subject to that fine.
I guess the other side of it is, like if, as a homeowner, I would love to be able to do everything because I know I should be painting my house every so many years and, attending to my furnace and whatever, God only knows the windows and, but I just don't have the money. So I kind of say, okay, well, I'll throw my hands up and I think about the taxpayers and I'm kind of like, this generation is getting, stuck with this huge bill because of the deferred maintenance and, is that fair? I'm playing devil's advocate because it would be wonderful to say, hey, we got this great person on top of it, dealing with this in the same time as, I'm looking at the bills and looking at my budget and saying, I just can't do it. And I know I should be painting my house and fixing the windows, but sometimes you just have to be like, I wish, but I have to do Band-Aid for this year. So I just, I know in the bigger picture, we're still gonna be stuck with these numbers and we're still gonna have to make the hard choices. So I recognize all the work you're doing, but.
And I think what we did as a group, Chris and I, when we talked about this, is we made a lot of those hard choices, as Chris said earlier, we were at 21. And we're down to 10. So we cut out half of what we thought could be done.
Yeah.
Try sitting in town hall in front of one of these windows.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
I mean, you freeze. And imagine what we're losing in energy cost, but again, you can't do everything all at once, I understand.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at the infrastructure we have in roads and bridges and buildings, we as a town are very fortunate to have it. We're also unfortunate how they take that.
Yeah.
And if you look at the elevator here, for instance, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm agreeing with everything. How frustrating it is when 5:30 at night of a select board meeting, the elevator goes down. You either have to get a waiver to have the meeting, or you can't have a meeting, there may be a special permit on it. Or the town hall should actually open it the next day if it's not handicap accessible, or it should have some sort of accommodations. And, we have 13 buildings that in this budget, and we owe it to the town to maintain them, but the question is how much and how soon? And, I guess that's our ultimate decision. The longer we wait to do the immediate fixes, the higher that number goes because of inflation. And also because there'll be more immediate fixes because they continue, they spread.
And, on the elevator, we're looking to upgrade it, but if one of the other control panels or boards or something goes wrong in it, it's not a shelf item any longer because the elevator's so old. You would be down for months, and hopefully they can find something within their inventory to keep us going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of looking at a bigger picture. I mean, it's, you know, nitpicking and 10,000 here and 20,000 here is not really gonna solve the huge problem of, you know, major tax increase possibility. So I assume that once we get through this, and this is for all department heads, that there's gonna be a B plan. If we come to you and say, hey, we need to trim this percentage or this hundreds of thousands, you know, because it's still a big nut, so.
Yeah, we're not there.
But we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
We want you to continue your wonderful
Yeah.
explanation, so I do appreciate it.
So Chris, go on, Mark, I'm sorry, Joe, I knew it was someone, do we wear name tags? Let's go on to page 19, if you thought page 13 was fun.
I think this one's really easy.
It is, you end on a high note. But actually, you got Parks and Recreation up, so you're not done. And I'm actually gonna go to that next so that we can get rid of Joe and he can sit and relax for a few minutes.
On the highway, again, the top section is basically all salaries, which, like we're obligated by contract to do, the issues there. Moving down to the lower section, I have one great news to report, streetlights. We're actually anticipating a substantial reduction in our streetlight costs because we're switching to LED. It's underway. You've probably seen some of it done around now. I didn't realize the full anticipated savings here, but I did take about 30% of it out. So it brought the number down. With any luck, you know, we're subject to how fast the electric company can work on changing. Let's see here. There's a new item, the mechanic tool allowance. If I could just explain this, we have a full-time mechanic in the highway garage. The town is fortunate that he's come here and brought all his tools. If he was to leave and take his tool, we're lucky if we have a ratchet set here. So over time, you know, we either have to find a way to pay the mechanic more because we're compensating the first tools, or as time goes on, build our own tool set and maintain it. So I introduced that to hopefully start doing that. Obviously, when you buy tools, it's like they can't disappear on you. We got to be held accountable for them, you know, and maintain them there, you know. So that's the new item and why it's there. Street and maintenance and bridge repairs, that's up about 16%. There's two items that are built into that. One is just basically a 3% increase for allowance of increase in cost. In my number, there's a $40,000 or so increase. In Mark's number, there's a $30,000 increase. This town owns one wooden bridge. Wooden bridges need to be maintained every year. We've done nothing. So I have $30,000 in Mark's number or my number, $40,000 to go out to Pumpkin Hollow and generate, you know, do some maintenance work on it. Engineers are currently working on a maintenance plan for me, so we hope we can facilitate, or it'll be a little bit more. But after that, just have some basic maintenance. Well, that's where that again. Pumpkin Hollow. Hazardous waste and collection. You can see the accrued cost there through year end is nothing. It was charged the wrong account, needs to be over. One waste collection was $5,800. Of the $6,000, we basically don't have enough for the second waste collection. So I've increased it to 8,500. That's done with 3 other towns and we split the cost. Police details, that has increased substantially. Right now, what we do is when the town hires a contractor to do any type of project on the roads and streets, police details are part of that. We pay the police details as a town direct, the contractor doesn't pay. So what's happening right now is all our police details are getting charged to the capital cost, which we're borrowing money for, and we're paying debt service on it. So the thing is, the thought process was to take out the police details and pay them off and get them paid back. I think the other item is travel and training. That's up a fair amount. What I hope to do this year is we have multiple levels of people in the organization, with different needs or different requirements for their positions. You can come in as a laborer, you don't need any license. You can have a truck driver, you need a CDL license, you need an operator, you gotta have a CDL license, you have to have a hydraulic license. What we're doing is if we can't train our people to and help them get these licenses, we are not making the town self-supported for longevity of that employees. So the pension money in there is that, and it's in a couple of different places depending on the department of the people on, is to help them get these licenses. So they're more of a benefit to the town. And when we turn around and have an internal opening, they have the licenses and the skill sets to step up to that position, and then we can hire in on the bottom. Instead of bringing someone in fresh on the top, deciding if they work out or not, at a higher position, more valuable in the town, and sending them away.
Any questions?
Could you explain the police details again? Because I'm aware, the police details line, because I know that in the police department budget, is there a correlation between that or their
No,
overtime?
These are details that we use for our DPW work, not necessarily
Okay.
the highway guys. If the highway guys are out, doing some drainage ditch work, they'll do the flagging and the size. But if we have a contractor in town working on manholes, catch basins, or streets, and we need a police detail, instead of charging it into the capital account and paying debt service on it, this would pay it out of the operating.
So that's flagging, like that, is that required to have a police officer rather than one of our people to do that, or?
We talk to the police chief, and it depends on the situation. If we're working up on Barrington Place where there's access both directions, I'll talk to the chief and we'll not work with detail for even for the construction activity. But if we're working on Main Street in the middle of the Bridge Street intersection, we're gonna have 3 of them. So on a case-by-case basis, we come up with a traffic control plan, and I share it with the police chief, and he kind of tells me what he's comfortable doing.
So the police are dictating
Police
whether,
chief.
the police chief are dictating whether we have to have a police.
So when we did a lot of the improvements along Main Street this year,
Yeah.
and the trip hazards, we didn't use a lot of police officers there. Because we were tucked off to the side and we were able to cone it off, and I was able to show the police chief that, we were coned ourselves off, we had our signs up, and we were able to funnel the traffic into 1 lane instead of 2 lanes.
Actually, I look at it a little differently. It's not that police are dictating where we need one. They're allowing us not to have one in some places, which we never did,
Right.
and it's actually saving money.
Answer any questions?
No,
Okay.
thank you though.
No.
Yeah, I was just, if there's kind of wiggle room to, who makes that call? And obviously police detail is very expensive as opposed to having one of our people. So I'm just wondering, is there, money to be saved somehow rather than hiring?
The police department has some shortages in manpower. This past year, we did use our people more. We did use our people occasionally, but it took them away from the daily work activities.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
even the bank ball.
Is there any liability to having, say, one of, let's say I work for you and I was gonna do the traffic as opposed to an officer, and I screwed something up, is that going to
So we would
cost the town money because you don't have the police?
That's a good question. They could, but what we've done this past year is we trained almost all of our DPW employees to become certified flaggers. So they have the credentials and the training to do.
I feel better with an officer myself, but
And
it costs more.
That's
Cases you need 'em.
$118,000 of.
Where do you know? Not at all.
15,000.
15,000.
tree service.
That's street
Oh,
service.
Maybe that's why I was asking you.
Never mind.
Well, it's still a lot.
It is all. Let's go, while you're there, let's go to Parks and Recreation on page 25.
So, this is basically the operating budget for the parks. there's one new line item for a clerk. What it is, I don't know what, Mark, you answered this, and I don't want to present that a certain way.
Sure. So Carolyn Witchman, who was working in our building department and also the board clerk for the Parks and Recreation Commission, retired in December. So we have not replaced that position yet. When we do, as discussed last night, that employee will likely be a Lee employee through an intermunicipal agreement. So a town of Lee through an intermunicipal agreement. So remember last night I said the building commissioner and the building local building inspectors will be Great Barrington employees, and the admin staff in 4 towns will be Lee employees. So we added this $3,200 line in here to retain Carolyn's services. She's willing to continue to work for the Parks Commission in retirement, just taking minutes, drafting their agendas, posting their agendas for them, things like that. So that's all this is. Give them some of that support staff.
So moving down to, park improvements, this is some money that's used to make repairs to existing equipment. Replacing boards on benches, things of that nature. Lake management, basically that is one simple thing, it's the mats that are placed and reset every year in the swim area. That makes it small increase there. The youth programming, is basically level funded. That consists of 3 items. It consists of the Lake Mansfield lifeguarding, the Housatonic playground, youth services that happen there. They put programs on, and that's done with the out, and the Railroad Street youth project, providing services down on Railroad Street here.
Let's back up for a second, Jim. About the mats, there's nothing, they can't last longer than a year, or there's no way to get that done.
They
They're less
have to,
expensive.
the mats don't get replaced. What they have to be is reset. Because they have to be taken out, cleaned, and put back. And it's really because if not, the weeds will grow up through them. So we just take them out as a company that we bring in and does it. So.
For the railroad, project, this is just, some grant that we provide for some of their programming, or what is it?
They run programming.
Right, and I know, I'm familiar with the organization, but what is it that we do as a town?
We pay.
It's a contracted service.
So
Oh,
we put that out for bid for the services at those 3 locations. And, we pay them as contracted services.
but I'm like, confused, we pay whom? We pay them for,
So we put the services out to bid, those local work for services, and,
but what services you mean?
it's for youth services such as, maybe gaming and programming and different things they do with the young kids.
Oh, okay, so they do some of the fundraising, but there's also money coming from town, correct?
Like,
Okay.
coming from town, which are part of the service.
Oh,
We said there's 3 agencies?
There's 3 locations, Lake Mansfield, the Housatonic
oh,
Playground,
I
and Railroad Street.
see.
This past year, Berkshire South bid on Lake Mansfield and Housatonic, and Railroad Street bid on the one down there.
Okay.
If I may share a little detail with you, Lake Mansfield is about $40,000 of cost for lifeguard services. And it serves us for about 64 days of lifeguard services. Housatonic Playground is about $18,000. And it's about 38 days of services provided there. Railroad Street is 96 days of services provided there. I'll just share, and the reason I'm sharing that is Steve's on the Parks Commission. The Parks Commission is struggling with Housatonic youth services there because it's sparsely attended. We're trying to do a couple things. So the commission hasn't made a decision to curtail those services yet, but there's discussion on it. Well, I just only point that out to you as we're looking for these to spend our money better, and that might be one of them. Waste management, you see no actual cost in there, that's paying for the porta potties at all our locations throughout town. It was just charged to the wrong account, will be transferred.
Questions on parks? Page 22, Council on Aging. Into wastewater. Joe, let's change. I forgot, Joe. You have wastewater too, so we might as well just do that while you're sitting at the table.
Hey,
31, page 31. No, that's good.
The top section again, is payroll, obligated payroll, requires increases. Moving down to the lower section, there is a change in the water. Again, that is due to the increase, potential increase of the ton of water. Rate increase, called secret. Contracted services, there's an increase there, and basically what is happening in the wastewater, there's PFAS, it's a constituent that we have to start testing for, treat for, increasing our cost of treating for waste, and that's what an additional money is coming for today. So police details is the same explanation as before. So whenever there's a wastewater project, we're paying the details out of operating purchase account. And there is an increase in the postage because there's 2 anticipated postage increases this year. Travel and training, that is increased for the same reason you've seen it in highway, because there's some licensing that we want to get for some of the people at wastewater to make our core people, increase their skill sets, have the licenses to move around and help facilitate things in the town.
And, Joe, so the wastewater entity has its own, insurance and retirement and all this.
Yeah, so all those numbers from that point down is really plugged in. I only got supplies that are illusion that kind of count.
We're working together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So the health and life insurance is going down 150%. Am I not reading that? No, I have 69.
169 to 65,000.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the amount, yeah. Yeah, that's something odd here. 24. There was. And the actual, sorry.
You want to come back to us for that?
Yeah, we'll come back.
Let's come back with that one next Tuesday.
Joe, this is the entity with the big retained earnings, so why are you adding those?
Oh, the question, I sort of touched on that. So in my 1.5 years here, we've had 4 emergencies, in that group. We've had the Pearl Street pump station fail 2 or 3 times. We've had a sewer main in a riverbank washout on the river. We had, the electrical, service down to the fairgrounds pump station failed in the middle of winter. One more. Oh, we had to stabilize a bank, a river bank where we had a sewer manhole that was ready to give away. And every time one of these things happens, it's like, how are we paying for it? It's gotta get done. How are we paying for it? So, what we're doing right now with the most recent one, with the fairgrounds and the sewer main issue we had down there, that exposure and the estimated cost of somewhere is between $65,000 and $72,000. And there's still an easement to straighten out, pay for, and things of that nature. And there's no money in the control operating budget to cover these things. So if we create a reserve account, then at least there's money there to be used if needed, and if it's not needed, it gets turned back to the.
And this be Can this be funded out of the retained earnings?
So, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask Ellie. Explain how the retained earnings can be.
You'd have to vote on it. It works the same way as free cash.
So you'd have to have a special town meeting to do that. While the sewer effluent is going into the river, we're calling a special town meeting.
Could we just do it in May or do this and start?
Well, only if the pipe breaks in May or June. See, what Joe's saying is if it breaks in September, that money, like free cash, can't be used except for a vote of the town meeting.
So we can't can we go to town meeting and say we want to use the retained earnings to fund the reserve?
Yeah, and that's what so I see what you're saying. So instead of using $100,000 here, the source of that could be the reserve fund as opposed to,
So the source would be the retained earnings.
retained earnings, I'm sorry, as opposed,
Well, an enterprise fund is self-supporting, so it's all
yeah, that's good
really
point.
kind of 6 to 1, half dozen to another, honestly.
I mean, it's a little bit of a Rubik's cube here, but you see what I'm saying? You're saying this entity has the money.
But it's either he's gonna use it and his retained earnings will be lower, it's the same.
Anything that we don't use in this account, correct me if I'm wrong.
It goes back.
goes back to the
Right,
return.
it stays
Okay.
with
So
It nets out.
6,500.
I mean, really, they're gonna use it like we use the, finance committee, emergency
Okay.
money.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going down a bad path. All right.
Sounded pretty good.
When we have the emergencies, what we're trying to do, in this case here is, my request to Paul was, let's try to find a home for it in your operating account. And if we approach year end and we have a problem, there maybe we can find a way to capitalize some of these costs.
Yeah, no, this makes sense. I'm sorry. My question was incorrect.
I have a question, you mentioned you had some emergencies, do you feel that because of the climate change that there could be more of those issues?
Boy, I'm not going down that rabbit hole, because the city of Pittsfield said their roads are terrible because of global warming. I'm not saying
No,
that.
but I'm talking about this specific, is there anything of concern or not really?
Well, I think the experiences, the four that I've stated,
Right,
only one of them was weather related.
Only one,
It was causing the
okay.
river.
okay.
The other ones are really old infrastructure,
Mhm.
the failures in the system. You know, we have an electric line feeding the pump station down there that has a lifespan of about 25 years. It's 53 years old.
Mhm.
And we're working on eventually replacing that, and maybe that's what the retained earnings can use once we get these ones straightened out and stuff like that.
Mhm, okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
You're saying we're all good at global warming.
That'll be the headline tomorrow.
Well, you know, the freeze thaw, you know, we used to get a hard frost freeze, and we had frost down on the ground 5 or 6 feet, the roads thawed out once. Here it's, they thaw every other week, and it just raises havoc with us.
Or when that hurricane came through and it just gullied everything.
One of the things maybe if I could just throw out there, I'm working with Ally, and is, if you were to ask me what does a building cost in this town to maintain and operate, I can tell you without moving leaps and leaps and pulling up paper research. So in the buildings account, what we're gonna do is set up a subcode for each building, and as we experience costs throughout the year, we're gonna charge it there, whether it's electric or gas, a repair. What we won't be able to capture is, labor. So what all the other expenses will be able to capture, so we can turn around and share with you, you know, in the future, how much it's costed to run a building.
Thanks, sir. Who's doing council on aging?
Joe should be fine.
Joe.
Look to her, thank you. You'll be doing that.
Joan P.
John Peters, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Joan, you.
Hello.
So, hello,
How's everybody?
wonderful.
Great.
What page are we on?
We're on page 22, I'm sorry.
22?
Yes.
There it is. we were all told to try and keep our budgets level. So the only increases, the main increases that happened on my budget were the 3%. The big changes to my budget, the first one would be our van drivers for part-time to full-time. I'm gonna let Chris talk about it, but I'm also gonna just say that with the increases of hours available for our seniors to be accessing transportation, in addition to all the other folks in town that can now, we're definitely seeing a great rise in the amount of participation by the senior population. So I definitely know we do need some more drivers. But I'll let Chris speak to the increase that we have submitted.
Thanks, Jones. That line 51109, the van drivers line. You'll see it is proposed to increase from 40,560 to 90,000. That is to go from 2 FTE now, full-time equivalent, to 4. The microtransit program now for FY24 was funded primarily through grants and partially through this FY24 van driver line. The grants that we received through Mass DOT, through Federal Transit, and through Mass DOT require a 50% match. For FY24, we were able to meet that match using partially this van driver line, but also very significantly using ARPA funds. Those funds are no longer available. So in order to provide the portion of the required match for FY25 for the operating grant that we've already received, we need to increase this line as well. Last year, we were able to do it through ARPA. This year, through this line, through the contributions that we discussed earlier when Lee asked about contributions from other towns. Those contributions will come in FY25 as well. But for Great Barrington's portion of the cost, we don't have ARP anymore. We need to increase this line to meet that requirement. The increase here is more than likely to be covered. Almost all of it will be covered by fare revenue, which we estimate to be about $40,000 a year. But if for some reason fare revenue drops, we still need to budget to meet this grant requirement.
And what is the fair revenue?
About $40,000 a year.
But what is it? I don't know.
What's it?
Oh, fair.
The rider's payment, the fare to ride the service. FARE, yeah. We also hope to cover this increase by another grant that we've applied for, which doesn't require a match at all and can cover the entire cost of the full-time employees with benefits. That's a Mass DOT innovation grant that we have in the hopper. We've applied for that, and we hope that, which doesn't require a match, can actually come in and be what ARPA was last year and be for us in FY25. So we have to budget to meet the match, and we're hoping we don't have to touch this at all.
So just to clarify, we have vans for transport the elderly, and we have vans for the tri-town connector. Do I have it right there? It's a separate set of vans?
It's one set of vans. And they transport seniors, the disabled, and the general population. Seniors and the disabled always have priority.
Okay.
Seniors and disabled used to be, before Tri-Town, only had transportation Monday to Friday from 8 to 4.
Are they just labeled differently? Because I feel I've seen.
Some of them are labeled differently.
Okay.
We didn't necessarily have, some of the vans that we have on share agreement with BRTA say council on aging.
Okay, well, that's all fine, but it's
So it's
one consolidated operation.
It's one operation, yes. One run out of one office. The drivers might take you, they might take, a senior. Yeah. So that's the biggest increase here, which we hope is covered by FARE revenue and or other grant revenue, which we hope to hear about soon.
Chris, I just had a question about the benefits for the two full-timers. So that's spread evenly between the towns, the longevity, the pensions and the benefits, or is that our burden?
It's not necessarily spread evenly. We try to allocate the contributions. We calculate the contributions from other towns based on ridership. And it's been pretty close so far, for FY '24. So the other towns are Stockbridge, Egremont,
No.
Monterey.
Not for COA.
Oh, council on, there's three who participate only through their councils on aging. That's
There's-
Stockbridge.
Sorry, Chris, there's four. It's Stockbridge, West Stockbridge, New Marlboro, and Monterey.
So having part-time and not having to pay the pension and the benefits, that rather than two full-times, is there a way to not have to have that extra burden of
What we've
longevity?
discovered with having only part-time employees and trying to run a 7-day-a-week program that goes from 6 AM to 8 PM is that scheduling becomes extremely difficult. It's been really difficult to recruit part-time drivers to work only up to 19 hours a week and yet cover all of those hours. So what we have is like close to 20 part-timers. It would be both more attractive and easier to recruit if we had full-time plus benefits and we could just know that we could rely on employees to be there rather than trying to shift schedules to keep everybody below the 19 hours. So that's the idea, and we're hoping that this innovation grant that we've applied for will cover those costs.
So Chris, kind of following on what he was asking, so when you are saying you are allocating the total cost based on number of riders or number of trips, whatever, are you looking at the total cost?
No,
No.
it does not include the total cost. Right
So
now,
what does it include? So what are you allocating cost-wise?
driver salaries, fuel and maintenance. Some towns are providing a vehicle in return for a little bit less of a cash contribution.
So, but was the reason why we are not allocating the total cost across the towns?
This is a pilot program, and I think what we did is come up with a program that we thought made sense to expand the existing senior-only service. We're still in the first year, and maybe in the future, it makes sense as we understand the total cost, as we've been through, once we get through a year and we understand what the total costs are all in, we could do that.
But you see the cost, you are showing us the cost.
This is what we think is a good estimate.
Right.
For FY '25, we can possibly increase costs. We've already had discussions with partner towns to increase costs.
I think at some point
To cover some of those.
Right.
Particularly like back office costs, whether it's HR, accounting, and things like that.
Right, I mean, you would have some kind of an estimate for the overhead, but I think it's, I understand why you would initially give them an, incentive to participate, and when that takes off, I think then it's a time to take a look at what are the cost structure.
We've already contacted, Mark's had phone conversations with the other towns as they do their FY '25 budgets to look at increasing all the contributions.
And just operationally, if you have someone from a non-member town, say Alfred, and they just and they need to go in the service area, and they want to take a trip in the service area with a Tri-Town connector, and they just call Tri-Town and get the ride and pay the fare just like anyone else.
No, the rides have to originate within the towns that participate.
But if someone from Alfred wanted to go from Stockbridge to Egremont,
Hypothetically, yes.
Yeah.
Chris, if you get this, this innovation grant, so then that's in addition to the revenue, correct? So we still have the fare, FARE revenue coming in, correct?
Correct. That would be in addition
Right,
to
so then it
that.
could actually be in the black,
Right.
Page 24, libraries.
So your libraries have had a rough few years. COVID, and last year, the libraries lost 120 hours a week of manpower. But we're recovering both from COVID and recovering from our loss of staff. We're in the process of hiring, and we are in the process of recovering our purchasing. However, the things that we're purchasing are getting more expensive. And for example, electronic materials like if you use Libby or Overdrive, those things are much more expensive than traditional books. But since 2019, the library's usage of ebooks and downloadable audiobooks has grown 328%. And so I brought you an example of what that means. So Lessons in Chemistry is a really popular book right now because it's a show on TV. And if we buy the print book, it costs us $16. If we buy the ebook for you to download from Libby, it costs us $55, so more than twice as much. And it expires after 2 years, we lose access to it. If we buy the audio CDs, you know, if you want to put the CDs in your car, you know, your car still has that capability as mine does, that costs us $25. However, if you want to play it from your phone on the car, it costs us $95 for the Libby version. If we want to own it, it would cost us $48 if we want to just use it for 12 months. So these are, while use of digital materials is skyrocketing, those things do cost much more. So that was the reason that I asked for an increase in our collection budget. Also, we want to start adding some more technology and high value items to our lending collection, like Chromebooks. And some toys and things for kids. The trustees have provided funds for us to start a toy collection with some dolls. And I want to grow that toy collection of it instead. So we're on the verge of hiring, we're on the verge of restoring hours in both libraries. And I'm open for questions.
Go ahead, Paul.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have a library card in town, don't we have access to the ebook collection through the Boston Library?
Yes, you have access to, I believe, the collections of all of the library systems in the state. However, if you're a patron of Great Barrington Libraries and we have purchased that copy, then you will get it sooner. So if you're looking for Lessons in Chemistry, and you just go out to the general state to get that book and we don't own it, you may have to wait a year or more for it. But if we own it, then you're only sort of competing with fellow Great Barrington card owners.
On that $55 cost, that's just one license essentially. One user could get that at a time.
Exactly. And then it expires.
And then it expires.
That's why they're being sued. Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason of why digital copies cost so much more than the print
Yes,
copies?
because they can't.
Just that's it.
Yes, because the laws that govern the sharing of things and owning of things were created a long time ago. And libraries are still using those laws, but this is new. It's not a thing that you hold in your hand, it's a license. And it's different, and so they can do this. Some libraries will purchase a Kindle, put a book on it, and then lend out the Kindle. So.
Are you keeping track of what other towns are using the ebooks that are not Great Barrington residents? Like, is there, I'm just curious if
I'm not,
someone, from a different town, we're investing so much in these ebooks, which is wonderful. And someone, or whatever, I'm not gonna pick on any towns, but are you keeping track of?
Yeah, I believe that we could, I believe there's a report that I could do to find that out. But to be honest with you, when I purchase ebooks, and this is not only here, but in my 2 previous positions, I go to the holds list, I make a report of what Great Barrington patrons have on hold. And I don't get past that holds list. So I just purchased Heaven and Earth grocery store. There were 18 local holds on that book. So I never get far enough down the list of holds. I start with what the most holds are. I purchase that one first. Then I start going down to, 10 holds, 7 holds, 6 holds, 5 holds, and I'm not likely to get past 4. So I'm really just purchasing what our patrons want.
So it's on demand, basically, so
It's on
whatever's the trendy ebook.
Exactly. So it's not,
Okay.
it's not being curated like, I'm going out and saying, oh, it would be nice to have this book. And
Yeah, I was wondering how
they're
you
too
pick that.
expensive for that.
Yeah.
So it's just what people want.
So if it's not available, in theory, could someone just go to, I don't know, Sheffield Library and see if that's there? And I mean, I just wondering how,
It all happens automatically.
yeah, okay.
So what happens in Libby is that Libby will tell you, you can set up your Libby so that it searches various systems.
Mhm.
And then depending on who owns that book, that dictates how fast you will get it.
Yeah.
So it would automatically, Sheffield is in CWMRs. So you would, first you would have access to our book. And then you would have access to CWMRs, and then you would have access to other systems.
Yeah, I guess I keep thinking about the investment in our libraries, which is wonderful. And, the shared arrangement of other people and, are other towns investing as much as we are?
That I can't tell you.
Yeah, and I just, I always
least
kind of
not
feel
every
that,
year.
we're doing such a great job, but at the same time, people are coming in. So I just question that, and that's more a philosophical question, but it's something I'm curious now, especially when we get into the ebooks. I mean, this is another investment. And, if it's based on holds and, all of a sudden the next great thing comes and we have, 20 people wanting it. So are we just gonna keep purchasing these ebooks because of the
Yes.
demand, and where's the end?
That's where it's going,
Yeah.
this is the new reality, is that, especially since COVID, is the demand is for digital materials. So, I mean, there's still a lot of people that like print books.
Mhm.
I like print books, and that's great because print books are cheap. But the wave of the future is digital materials.
So in terms of the budget, are we increasing the the ebooks and decreasing the, so there's gonna be a kind of a,
I figure that next year it will be about $25,000 for ebooks and downloadable Bible books.
and you'll compensate that by not investing so much in print materials, or is that just, the budget's just gonna keep going up?
It will just, well, it is going up this year.
Yeah, I see that.
If you all approve it. But within that budget, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Less print, more digital as years go on.
So would you consider, I'm sorry.
I've been using, the Libby for a long time. And I never ever found a book in Great Barrington. I would always go to the, the state system. And so my question is, how many of these digital books you are thinking you would want to have? And does it even make sense if people can actually go, because that's the beauty of digital library, and just basically get it from the state system?
And the same is true for print books.
Right, but I mean, a print book is trickier, right? Because I would have to drive somewhere else.
No.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but what I'm saying is I can just get on my phone, I can get my idea and I can get it and I'm done and I can start reading. So there is the convenience factor. So my question is really like, where do you really, because obviously the funds are limited, right? So where do you think you can get the best return on this kind of an investment? I mean, should it be, certain kind of books only? Because a lot of them, you won't be able to ever match what the system has, right? The system will have all the more books than we can ever.
So what we're purchasing really is access for, faster access for local patrons. And I think that you'll see, hopefully, in the coming years that when you do go look for that ebook, and you're looking in the, I'm not even sure what you call it here, the OPAC, the online catalog, that you will see it more often owned by Great Barrington. And so sometimes mostly what I'm buying for ebooks is going to be popular. And sometimes I might even, instead of buying it for 24 months, I'll buy 2 cheaper versions for 12 months.
Okay.
So that you can all have it quicker.
And how are you gonna determine which books are popular based on what?
There's reports, there's all
I mean,
kinds.
I know there are lots of reports, but
Yeah.
like people have also very different tastes.
Right, and, that's true.
Right.
And so, that is something to think about. Should we be buying things that do not have holds on them in ebooks? And we can,
Right.
just like we do with print materials. But again, then that's more, investment in ebooks. So,
Right. I mean, it's very tricky. It's a very complicated position.
I mean, I'm
to
just
be
saying
in.
that honestly,
Right,
right
yeah.
now, what I'm accustomed to buying is the things that have holds on them.
Okay.
Sometimes a patron will request something directly and we'll look at it and it's not a terribly expensive thing, and we'll buy.
Any questions about the budget?
Yeah. But would you consider with Ally's help, breaking out the separate line items for books and ebooks going forward?
Yeah.
Or you could track this?
Oh, yes, it's tracked in our internal,
Right, you track it, but yeah, it's not.
yeah.
Okay, good idea.
I just have a question. With me being part of the 23.6% of seniors in our town, I would hope that we wouldn't get too crazy with ebooks. Seniors like paper.
And large print as well, many.
I didn't say that.
How old do you think he is? Legal.
So the non-print materials, is that where the Chromebooks and toys are? Is that, you mentioned that? you'd like
The
to start getting-
library of things, which I believe, keeping in mind that I've only been here for 4 weeks, started with a grant. And I've asked to expand it and the trustees have given me some money to add the American Girl and Boy Doll collection. But you can't sustain a collection on grants and donations, so yes, I would like that to become part of the non-print materials.
So. Okay, so where was it? So I don't see an increase, or can you just walk me through,
So
Or 30.
non-print materials, is,
31.5.
okay.
yeah.
Mm,
So that could be anything from DVDs to audio CDs that have books on, books on CDs to a hotspot.
mm. So, I mean, I guess we'll be, when we review all the departments in our conversations, between the ebooks and investments and Chromebooks and toys, and, I mean, where do you, if we were to say, take this percentage off or this amount, I mean, do you really see the investment should go to these non-print materials, that you really see that for families that maybe, couldn't afford certain toys or Chromebooks, or, I mean, do you have a sense of where we're going? Because there's so many things and technology is changing. And do you feel like people come in and say, I need an American Doll? Or do you, I mean, I'm wondering where we're going with,
Well,
toys and,
it's kind of a sustainable thing,
yeah.
right? So instead of everybody in town buying the latest hot toy, it's the same as books. The library buys it and people share it. So that's the idea. The same idea as with a sewing machine. Or the serger, or the weed whacker, or pressure washer.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's the idea, is that it's a shared
Uh-huh.
value, and it's more sustainable and it's more economical.
Thank you.
One of the, just if I may, with the toys that you're buying, dolls, et cetera, with the broad scope of how things are now, I hope you're including, dolls for minorities
Yes,
and, disabled folks, et cetera.
they're amazing, these dolls. Some of them have hearing aids. You can get wheelchairs for them. They come in every ethnicity with all kinds of cultural, clothes and accessories.
But I just want to make sure we include them. I understand it comes that way, but this town is, there's not a lot of minorities in this, in Great Barrington.
But, I believe that in a town where there are not a lot of minorities, it's very important to, include those things anyway, because the world is a much bigger place
That's what I was
than
saying.
Great Barrington. Which brings up another thing, I also think that we should start some foreign language, small foreign language collections at the library in print. So since that's Spanish books.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Patrick, do you want to say something?
Yeah,
Is it about the budget?
it's about the capital growth today, but I want to make sure everybody has met Dawn. This is our new library clerk.
We know that. We figured that out. We've already done capital for the evening. We're done. If you want to speak during citizen speak. We've done capital. What is it you want to talk about?
About Ramsdale.
Okay, that, probably you were talking about the 150,000?
Yeah.
That's not tonight. That's a special article. That's next week. I don't know why you're looking at Mark.
Well, because
I did put the date in my email. Next, special articles is next week.
okay,
I mean, yeah, you'll get the most bang for your buck then.
just add one thing, just.
Of course.
What day next week?
Just so we're.
Yeah, no, I'm looking. Tuesday? Tuesday.
13th.
Yes, that would be the 13th. So the 13th at 6 o'clock, the meeting starts.
Let me just, if I could just take one second here to add something else, because it ties into what Dawn's saying, the way technology is and budgets, the town is never gonna be able to keep up with this stuff. We're one of the only towns that doesn't have philanthropy and endowment or something like that. If you look at what the other ones, feel like the 990s, they all have money that goes into this stuff. They're gonna be used to offset some of the big costs. We're trying to start with now. There's no other way the library, whether it be improvements or anything else, you need money, private money from the public to make this happen. We asking for your help to make that happen, but this is the only way we're gonna survive.
Thank you, Patrick. Citizen speak time. Go ahead, Sharon.
Karen Gregory, Northern Avenue. May I ask, what the special article is and what it covers to discuss things like the 150,000?
It's online it's online in the budget. I can read it to you, but, let's step
I
finish.
mean, I guess I'm just wondering how is it organized? Is it like not quite, it's not the CIP?
Has nothing to do with CIP. It's
Right. It's
articles that,
operational.
we've been doing this for years. It's articles that are voted on separately at the town meeting, financial articles. What page? Tab 9. So I'll briefly. It's community impact funding, Berkshire Hills vocational tuition, transportation, stabilization, capital stabilization. There's a whole bunch of, there's 12 here, not all are being recommended to be funded this year. Ambulance is another one that's on here.
So those are the ones that are not being considered to be.
No, some of these are, some aren't. So if you look at the budget on tab 9, it has it all in there.
Okay, and then, those are all kind of operational items as opposed to capital items. Or
You really have to read it because it's probably mixed is the best way to put it. I don't know if there's capital in there. Yeah, I mean, capital stabilization, what do you call it? It's a stabilization fund for capital, so.
Okay,
which we've funded in the past.
okay.
Anyone else? Somebody online? Yes, James, hold on. James, go ahead. Just unmute yourself, James, and you're good to go.
Sorry,
There you
it's
go.
James Garzone, 84 North Plain Road. Just two comments. The 1.5 million, I would hope we can make it to return earnings instead of borrowing. And number two, each page has a department head approval signature. Is there a way in the future that we can either type the person's name or have the person print their name? Because signatures are great because we know who it is, but in the future, we won't know who Joe Abadell is or Mark Brzezinski or anybody else. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, James. Anyone else? Any press? Bye.